Area 51, right? And the images instantly flood your mind.
Oh, yeah. Flying saucers, little green men.
Government conspiracies, the whole deal. For so many of us, it's just, etched into our collective imagination, a kind of shorthand for the unexplained.
Absolutely. It's like a code word for mystery.
But for those of us who appreciate the deeper layers, who know there's usually more to the story, well, the real history of Area 51 is, honestly, far more intricate.
And maybe even more compelling than the folklore, in its own way.
Definitely. That name alone, Area 51, it's just a masterclass in intrigue, isn't it?
It really is. It immediately sparks that curiosity, that desire to know what's really hidden out there in the desert.
And today, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to try and peel back some of those layers.
Yeah, cut through some of that captivating folklore to get to the surprising and, like you said, equally fascinating true story behind the legend.
We've been digging through the sources you, the listener, provided, including some really eye-opening declassified government documents, stuff that wasn't public for decades.
Right. So our mission today is to uncover what really went on there. And just as importantly, maybe understand why those myths, the alien stories, took such a powerful hold on the public imagination.
Because the truth, it seems pretty clear it doesn't involve extraterrestrials.
No, the evidence points elsewhere. But what it does reveal is incredible human ingenuity, the really high stakes of national security during a critical time.
The Cold War, especially.
Exactly, and this really intriguing dance between deliberate, intense secrecy and just rampant public speculation.
Okay, so let's dive into the official story first. Because even the known facts they're pretty remarkable on their own.
Agreed.
Most of us know it's a super secret base somewhere out in Nevada, right? But what's its actual identity? Where is it, precisely?
Okay, so at its core, Area 51 is a highly classified United States military installation. No surprise there. You'll find it deep within the huge Nevada test and training range. Specifically, it's situated at a dry lake bed called Groom Lake, down in southern Nevada.
How far from, say, Vegas?
It's about 83 to 120 miles north of Las Vegas, depending on the route. So remote, but not completely in the middle of nowhere.
And its official names are so much less exciting than Area 51, aren't they?
Yeah, they are quite mundane. Officially, it's known as Groom Lake or sometimes Homey Airport. Its airport code is KXTA.
Homey Airport, really?
Yep. And apparently back in the day, they used other code names too, like Watertown. And get this, Paradise Ranch.
Paradise Ranch. That sounds like a dude ranch brochure, not a top-secret military base.
Exactly. And that seems to have been deliberate. Paradise Ranch was likely chosen specifically to try and attract workers to what is, let's be honest, a pretty remote and desolate, arid location.
Makes sense. So when did it all start?
It was established back in 1955, and its original very specific purpose was to be a test facility for the Lockheed U-2 spy plane.
The U-2. The super high-altitude reconnaissance plane.
That's the one. A truly revolutionary aircraft for its time, designed purely for gathering vital intelligence over places like the Soviet Union during the heightening Cold War.
And the U-2 was just the beginning, wasn't it? There was a whole lineage of incredible secret aircraft tested out there.
Absolutely. After the U-2 came things like the A-12 Archangel, also known as Oxcart. That was the precursor to the legendary SR-71 Blackbird.
The Blackbird. The plane that could fly faster than Mach 3, literally outrunning missiles fired at it. Just an incredible piece of engineering.
Truly. And then later on, Area 51 was crucial for developing and testing the F-117 Nighthawk stealth fighter.
The first operational stealth aircraft with that weird angular design to baffle radar.
Exactly. These weren't just faster planes, they were technological leaps. Game changers that redefined aerial capabilities and warfare.
What blows my mind, though, is that despite being this, pop culture icon for decades, the government barely admitted it existed.
That's right. It's quite remarkable. The CIA didn't officially acknowledge Area 51 as a military base until June 2013.
2013, that's so recent.
It is, and that acknowledgement only came about because of declassified documents. Specifically, documents obtained through Freedom of Information Act requests, FOIA requests, related to the U-2 program history.
Just think about that. A place everyone knew about, whispered about, made movies about, and the official confirmation is barely over a decade old.
It really makes you wonder what else is still classified, still operating under deep cover that we won't know about for another 50 years.
Right. So, okay, with these kinds of groundbreaking, potentially war-winning projects happening there, The secrecy had to be intense.
Oh, absolutely paramount. It all comes down to national security.
So the fences, the warnings, the guards.
All of it. The extreme security measures you've got: restricted airspace, no-fly zones, controlled access roads, constant surveillance with radar, cameras, motion sensors.
And the armed patrols with those infamous signs. Deadly force authorized.
Exactly. All of that was deemed necessary to protect these cutting-edge aviation projects. Things like advanced drone testing, systems for evading radar, maybe even early work on hypersonic flight programs.
Stuff you absolutely did not want potential adversaries, like the Soviet Union back then, getting even a hint of.
Precisely. Keeping that technological edge was critical during the Cold War.
Okay, so you have this intense veil of secrecy, vital for national security, protecting these revolutionary projects. That makes perfect sense.
Like,
But what happens when that extreme secrecy creates a vacuum? When people see things they can't explain in the sky near this mysterious place?
well, that's where the story takes a sharp turn, isn't it? From military secret to extraterrestrial legend.
How did real state secrets accidentally become the fuel for alien myths?
This is where you get into what you might call an accidental but incredibly effective form of misdirection. It turns out the unusual super high-altitude test flights of those very real aircraft, the U-2 and later the A-12 Oxcart, were the primary source of many early UFO sightings in that area.
Because they flew so high.
Exactly. These planes were routinely operating at over 60,000 feet. Now, you have to remember, back in the 50s and 60s, commercial airliners were typically flying around 20,000 feet, maybe 30,000 tops.
Okay, so triple the altitude, basically.
Or double, at least. So imagine you're a pilot or someone on the ground. You see something way, way up there moving fast.
You'd have no reference point. It wouldn't look like any plane you knew.
Precisely. It seemed impossibly high for any known aircraft, so it instantly pushed it into the realm of the unexplained, the unidentified.
And didn't their appearance contribute too? Weren't they shiny or reflective?
Yes, their sleek, often unpainted or silver designs would catch the sunlight at those high altitudes, making them appear as strange, glowing objects, especially at dawn or dusk. An unintentional but very effective disguise, you could say.
Wow. So the very thing they were trying to hide was creating the mystery.
Sort of, yeah. And here's a fascinating part. The U.S. Air Force actually had this project called Operation Blue Book, set up specifically to investigate UFO reports from the public.
Right, I've heard of that.
Well, Blue Book investigators were often able to figure out what these sightings were. They could cross-reference the UFO reports with the classified flight logs of the U-2 and A-12 test flights happening out of Area 51.
So they knew it was their own secret planes causing the report.
In many cases, yes. But here's the catch. They were explicitly forbidden from revealing the true explanation, oh, that was just our top-secret spy plane, to the public or the press.
Ah, because that would blow the secret.
Exactly. So by not being able to provide the real mundane explanation, they inadvertently just fueled the mystery and the speculation about aliens.
So the cover-up of the spy planes became a sort of accidental cover-up for UFOs.
In effect, yes. It's estimated that more than half of all the UFO reports investigated by Blue Book during the late 1950s and 1960s were actually sightings of these classified high-altitude aircraft.
That's a huge percentage. And now, of course, we tend to use the term unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAPs.
Right, that's the more current terminology, reflecting a perhaps slightly more open official approach to investigating these things, though the core issue of unexplained observations remains.
Okay, so that explains the early sightings. But then, in 1989, the story takes another huge leap, doesn't it, with Robert Lazar?
Ah, yes, Bob Lazar. He really threw gasoline on the fire.
What was his story again?
Lazar came forward claiming he had actually worked at Area 51, or rather, a subsidiary facility nearby he called S4. And he claimed his job was to reverse engineer captured alien spacecraft.
Reverse engineer alien tech. That's a massive claim.
Huge. He talked about seeing 9 different types of alien craft, about propulsion systems powered by a stable isotope of an undiscovered super-heavy element he called Element 115.
Element 115 sounds very sci-fi.
It does. He even claimed to have seen documents, briefing papers that included details about aliens, even photographs suggesting alien autopsies might have taken place.
Okay, that's the kind of stuff that launches 1,000 conspiracy theories.
And it absolutely did. But here's the crucial context that often gets less attention. Lazar's background story started to unravel under scrutiny.
How so?
Well, his claims about his education degrees from MIT and Caltech couldn't be verified. There were no records of him attending, let alone graduating.
That's a pretty big red flag for someone claiming to be a physicist working on alien tech.
A very big one. And his claimed employment history, like being a senior physicist at Los Alamos National Laboratory, records showed he worked there, yes, but as a technician for a contractor, not a physicist on staff.
Okay, so significant discrepancies.
Significant fabrications, really. Plus, it later emerged he had criminal convictions, including for felony pandering, and later for shipping illegal chemicals.
Wow. So not exactly a squeaky clean source.
Far from it. And yet, despite all this evidence discrediting his specific claims and his credentials, his story had an enormous impact. As one source put it, Lazar's narrative propelled Area 51 into the public's consciousness like nothing before.
It demonstrates how a really compelling story, even a false one, can just take root, especially when there's an information vacuum created by official secrecy.
Exactly. People wanted answers. Lazar provided a sensational one, and it stuck.
So this guy Lazar, he basically built this global phenomenon around Area 51's alien connection almost entirely on, well, fabricated claims.
The evidence strongly suggests that yes, his story, however compelling, doesn't hold up to scrutiny.
Which really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Did the government, and maybe not intentionally at first, but did they eventually kind of allow these wild alien rumors to flourish?
As a distraction, you mean?
Yeah. Was it a convenient smokescreen? If everyone's looking for little green men, maybe they're not looking too hard at, say, the development of stealth technology, or maybe even efforts to reverse engineer captured Soviet aircraft, which is something else rumored to have happened there.
That's a fascinating question, and it's certainly been debated. Was it an unintentional benefit of the secrecy, or perhaps even a subtle form of psychological strategy? Distraction. It's hard to say definitively from the outside.
But it certainly fits the pattern of intense secrecy around military tech.
It does, and it helps to put it in the broader context of how information classification evolved in the U.S.
Right, because this level of secrecy wasn't always the norm, was it?
No, not really. Stringent, widespread secrecy applied to scientific and technical information really became a major thing only after World War II during the Cold War. The U.S. classification system itself, confidential, secret, top secret, actually borrowed quite heavily from existing British and French systems.
And they developed core principles to manage that secrecy.
Exactly. Principles like need to know, which is fundamental. It means you only get access to classified information if your specific duties absolutely require it. Doesn't matter your rank, only your need.
And compartmentalization.
Right. That's another key one. Dividing up big, sensitive projects into smaller pieces so that very few people, maybe even no single person, knows the whole picture. They did that with early torpedo development, for example.
So one team works on the engine, another on the guidance, another on the warhead, and they don't necessarily know the details of each other's work.
Precisely. It minimizes the damage if there's a leak or espionage. So the extreme secrecy around Area 51 wasn't necessarily unique in principle. These methods were used elsewhere, but it was perhaps extreme in practice because the work being done there was just so advanced, so far ahead of its time.
Okay, so fast forward to today. Area 51 in the 21st century. What do we think is going on there now? The Cold War is over. The U-2 and Blackbird are museum pieces.
Well, based on analysis of satellite imagery, expert speculation, and the sheer investment still apparent there, the consensus is that it's likely still very active.
Testing what, though?
Probably the next generation of military technology. Advanced drones, UAVs, UCAVs, continued development in stealth technology, possibly hypersonic weapon systems, things that fly many times the speed of sound.
And maybe some of those more exotic rumored aircraft like the supposed TR-3B, that triangular craft people sometimes report?
That's purely speculative, of course. But Area 51 would be the logical place to test something like that if it existed. The key is, it remains a place for testing things that need to stay secret.
Although it's not quite as hidden from view as it once was, is it? I mean, you can pull it up on Google Maps now.
That's true. Since around 2018, high-resolution satellite imagery of the base is publicly available online. You can see the runways, the hangars, the support facilities.
Which is kind of ironic, given its history.
It is, but physical access is still obviously impossible, and you can bet they take measures against closer surveillance. And there's still clear evidence of ongoing activity.
Like that recent time-lapse footage.
Exactly. There was analysis of satellite photos covering about 7.5 years from late 2016 into 2024, and it showed significant dirt work, as they called it, and a lot of activity around the gravel pit areas and the shipping and receiving zones.
What does that suggest?
Well, it sparked speculation. Could they be expanding underground facilities? Are they deliberately making changes on the surface, maybe overbuilding certain areas, just to confuse adversaries trying to analyze the satellite photos.
Make it harder to figure out what's really important.
Potentially, yes. Keep people guessing.
Speaking of keeping people guessing, that brings us to maybe the most bizarre chapter in recent Area 51 history,
Right.
the Storm Area 51 event.
Oh boy, yeah. 2019, that was something else.
It started as a joke on social media, right? A Facebook event.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Storm Area 51, they can't stop all of us. The idea was that if enough people rushed the gates at once, some might get through and finally see the aliens.
And millions of people RSVP'd online.
Millions express interest, yeah. It went completely viral. Of course, the U.S. Air Force had to take it seriously, at least publicly.
What did they do?
They issued warnings, advising people not to attempt to enter a controlled military training range. They emphasized it was dangerous, and they reportedly sent some reinforcements to the area just in case.
So what actually happened on the day? Did millions descend on the Nevada desert?
Not quite millions. In the end, it was more like a low-key desert gathering. Maybe around 6,000 people showed up in nearby towns like Rachel and Hico.
6,000 is still a lot, but not millions.
Right. And crucially, there was no actual storming, no breach of security at the base itself. The whole thing was widely described afterwards as a kind of a huge fiasco in terms of the original plan.
But it really shows the enduring power of that Area 51 myth in popular culture, doesn't it? That even a joke could mobilize thousands of people.
Absolutely. It lives on. You see it referenced constantly in movies, TV shows.
Independence Day, Doctor Who, The X-Files. It's a go-to trope for government secrets and alien encounters.
And it's even created a whole little tourist industry out there. You've got the town of Rachel, Nevada, branding itself near the extraterrestrial highway. People travel there just to be near the legend.
It seems the legend has taken on a life completely separate from the base's actual practical purpose.
I think that's fair to say. It really speaks to our fascination with the unknown, doesn't it? The desire for stories that push the boundaries of what we think is possible.
Yeah. When the official story is silence or classified documents, our imaginations tend to fill in the blanks, sometimes wildly.
Exactly.
So, wrapping this up, while Area 51, almost certainly doesn't house alien spacecraft or little green men,
Right.
its true history is still incredibly compelling. Developing these groundbreaking spy planes, stealth fighters, managing intense Cold War secrets, and navigating this bizarre relationship with public perception and myth-making.
A fascinating deep dive all on its own. A real testament to human innovation, pushing technological limits, and also the complex, sometimes strange nature of national security and secrecy.
Absolutely.
And maybe it leaves us with a final thought to consider. Given how long it took for the real story of the U-2 and Oxcart testing at Area 51 to come out through declassification, right, what kind of truly cutting-edge technology might be being developed today under similar secrecy, perhaps at Area 51 or elsewhere, that we won't learn about for another 30, 40, 50 years?
And how might our current mysteries, things like the modern UAP reports that the Pentagon is now investigating more openly, how might they be explained by future revelations about technology we can't even conceive of yet?
It's definitely something to think about. The line between unexplained phenomena and undisclosed technology can be very thin sometimes.
Keep that question in mind as you continue exploring the hidden histories that shake our world. Because as Area 51 shows us, there's always more to learn, always another layer to peel back.